Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 17th of June. Wishing you a brilliant week ahead. Now let's get on and look at these markets. Once my charting package sorts itself out, at the moment it's on a happy merry-go-round. It's just deciding to do its own thing at the moment. So yeah, a difficult one this morning, but whilst that's playing with itself, because I'm not touching anything here, I've checked nothing's touching my keyboards. Nope, that's it, just checking. Okay, let's try and change a couple of things here. No, it's well, maybe it will sort itself out. It's having a bit of fun. Anyway, let's just before we go on to that, quick look at the news for this week. I say the news for this week, key news for today, and well, looking forward. We haven't got a great deal of data coming this week. We've got at the moment, just today we've got the Empire State Manufacturing Index. That's much later, 1:30. Nothing now this morning. Then we've got Australian, the Reserve Bank of Australia cash rate statement, etc. Tomorrow morning, 5:30, 6:30. We got it'll all be done by the time we start anyway. Normally, we got U.S. core retail sales tomorrow. Bit of UK inflation there year on year on Wednesday. Then we've got Swiss National Bank and the Bank of England, central banks both meeting. So we'll see how we get on there. On Friday, we've got the flash manufacturing services. This is the key one of looking at manufacturing services. So this is the one we really want to be watching for. This goes right the way through Euro zone, the UK, and the US. So that's something for Friday. But today, well, hopefully my charts are settled down now and aren't doing a weird thing that they seem to have been doing a moment ago. I was just about to press the button and it seems to be moving a little bit here. We'll start off looking at the New Zealand dollar first, as it's on here, and I'm not going to risk things too much. New Zealand dollar coming off over the last couple of days here, Friday and this morning, coming off. It's really in a place of nowhere. It had been doing particularly well into the middle of last week there. Then Thursday, Friday coming off there. Anyway, now looking off, not particularly great. Let's see if I can get the euro dollar to come up here, and let's see if we can switch these markets. It seems to be wanting to do its own thing this morning, this software. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it's hanging in there for a moment. The dailies then for the euro looking soft. Bit of continuation at the moment, but it's slow where it is at the moment. A bit more consolidation here. We've got the potential. We've got weekly pivots above. I like this. We've got potential targets. They're also obviously points of resistance if the market gets back up there. So we're currently sitting there on the dailies. So a move back above the dailies could give us that sort of that opportunity to be going for the upside. The only thing I don't like about it, of course, is counter sort of the current trend. The trend has been to the downside here, and we would be looking at the opposite direction to the trend there. Anyway, that's the euro US dollar. The pound, if we can get it, and if it holds on, it'll be good. So the pound finding support into its monthly pivot at the moment. Friday it just broke through its trend line there. We are structurally changing shape a little bit here. It's put a lower high in there. Yes, it's got some reasonable support here. We've got a quarterly pivot. It had been holding up pretty well, the pound, but it's followed the route. I think the uncertainty as we get closer, well, I say uncertainty, there's a pretty much certain political scene coming up soon, so perhaps that will be priced into the market. The claims of the party that's forever crashing the country's finances are that they're not going to be messing around with it. Well, we'll see. But anyway, financial stability is their idea. So we'll see if it's financial stability, but we've got a bit of time to go yet. So we're sitting in this chop at the moment. I'm just looking at again. Well, actually, we've got the daily pivot above. If it turns around by the quarterly pivot, there's not a lot for me to do here. Again, it's the weekly pivots, the sort of draw I'm looking at. My preference is with the euro over the pound. If I was to be shorting one of these into the pivot, would be the euro. The pound, yep, it's it's just that factor is it's not come off as far, but things could all change on that this week going forward, particularly with the Bank of England meeting later. US dollar yen, where the yen's continuing to show weakness here. 4 hourly picture where we just short of the weekly pivot there, but the weakness continues. We did break through some previous highs there. That 158 area is very key to the markets. Yes, it did sell off again on Friday from that or around that area, but hardly significant here. And looking at the data last week, the traders are still selling again, or the bigger traders, institutional money is selling against the yen, so we could see the dollar pushing up further again. Anyway, I'll check the data out for the previous week, the most recent week, what's happening, but the scope here for a continuation to the upside. Not that I particularly like it, because at some point each time it gets near that 185 area, it's more significant risk. Australian dollar, but I don't know. Did the New Zealand dollar? So the Australian dollar very similar to the New Zealand dollar. It's been ranging. The New Zealand dollar was the darling, the Australian dollar not so much, and it was coming off last week there. It ran back into its prior sort of zone, the supply zone, came off quite strongly later in the week there, finding support around its quarterly pivot sort of area. So whether or not it can hold on the reverse on there. Again, we've got the weekly pivot above, which could be a draw at some stage if we see it coming over. Likewise, once it gets towards that area, it could be a point of selling. Short term, well, daily pivot's already been hit near enough into the S1. Nothing there for me at the moment. US dollar CAD. So the CAD, well, it's sort of curling itself around, pushing to the upside. We've got on the lower time frames a little bit clearer, the higher lows coming through here and the higher highs pushing through. A bit consolidated where it is at the moment, but it's above at the moment, above its weekly pivot. That S1 looks quite nice above. If we see a continuation of dollar strength this morning, shorter term here in this it's quite an ugly chop sort of zone. If the big picture had been in a downward trend, I would be quite happy to be looking at shorting this morning, but it's a mess. But it would normally be a nice short down towards its S1, but to say it's going against the grain there. I've already looked at the New Zealand dollar, so that's done that. Finally, the Swissy here of the majors. So the Swissy strengthening a little bit last week against the US dollar here. This is US dollar Swissy, so the US dollar coming off a little bit here. Money running into safety perhaps last week, but again I'm just looking from this weekly picture. We've got a pivot ahead there. The weekly pivot's up there. That could again be the draw. if this was to continue, that would be quite a nice move into that. We saw it all dancing around its weekly pivot last week for the early stage there, broke out, came back, retested it, and off it went. The weekly pivots do tend to work quite well on here. We are currently sitting around its daily pivot. Again, Friday sold off from its daily pivot. We'll see what happens here. It's a potential for it to continue and run back towards its S1 here. That all fits nicely. So at the moment it's looking probably one of the better markets, potentially anyway. Okay, I'm going to run through the rest of these markets in the trading room in a short while. For now though, let's switch and just have a quick look at how gold, oil and the indices are doing. Starting off with gold then. So gold coming off this morning at the moment. Friday it's sort of making a bit of a recovery, holding up around here, but it's holding up around the lows of the more recent movement. So it's erring to the downside from that sort of picture. Just looking, it is quite a mess in terms of what's going on. Certainly not a clear cut market there. Sometimes you just look at a market, it's absolutely beautiful price action. This is a bit all over the place. As I say, looking a bit on the soft side, certainly this morning coming off, but not something I want to be trading. Oil, well, oil's up to its monthly pivot here. It looks like it's having a struggle with that. It spent 3 days last week running into it and not being able to close above it. It's probably at that back of that area, $78. Yeah, so it's sitting around that area of that's the status quo really. It's right on its quarterly pivot here as well. It's been moving around. Move back below its weekly pivot would suggest to me that we're going to have further downside for now. Stocks were high last week, but we'll see what happens. But it's already making off to a bit southbound as we look at it at the moment, but things can change leading into the early afternoon when it's more tradable for me. So, well, I'll sit and wait, but at the moment it's quite a mess in what it's doing here. Okay, S&Ps. So the S&Ps last week, if it's going to switch to the S&P would be good. Is it going to play about again? Ooh. So last week we saw a sort of new all-time highs here. At the moment it's just sort of pushing a little bit up there, but it's a market I certainly wouldn't bet against at the moment, regardless of interest rates and everything else. It seems to be well, it doesn't seem to be anything big to the downside. Whenever it catches a bit of a downside, the recovery is amazingly good for now. So it's one of those that it's more go with than go against, or go bust. Go with or go bust, really. Nasdaq, same, pushing up here. It's really leading the way with the tech companies, leading through new all-time highs every day there. The Dow much more sluggish. Is it going to go and start playing some catch up at some point, or are we going to, if we do, as I said, if we do see the markets rolling, this has probably got the best scope to roll the best. The DAX still coming off from Friday. There's a bit of a bounce this morning. Could be a nice move into that weekly pivot with the lower highs, lower lows we've seen running through the last few weeks here. That would be a nice point if we get some resistance into that. If we see a reversal into that weekly pivot for a short, so some potential there on the Nasdaq, on the DAX, and finally the FTSE. Again, one that's very similar to the Dow in terms of it's just not going anywhere. It's just hanging back there with the markets. Much more correlated with the Dow. Lower highs, lower lows kicking through here. This morning it's starting off looking soft. We'll see how it runs, but Here we go, the 8 o'clock bar already shifting down here below the pivot there. Would look reasonable for a bit of a continuation if you're looking to short some equity markets. A close below that, a continuation down to the S1 and its previous lows could be on the cards. Right, I shall leave it there. I wish you a great days and a great trading, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye for now.